Rounds of action for you this morning. Of course, then we'll cut to a top 8, and then we'll have our elimination rounds and eventually crown a champion here in Charlotte.
This goes without saying, but in game 1, Matt is completely hopeless against Alexander's best draws. He's at the mercy of what Alexander's capable of doing here.
I think most decks are. Here's a Serum Visions off of a gemstone.
There's not even a Thoughtseize. There's not even an Inquisition.
Yeah.
Alexander game 1 gets to run wild. When we get to the sideboard games and Matt has access to Blood Moon, it's very different. But game 1, if Alexander's got the nuts, we're just going to game 2. Nothing Sperling can do about it.
Well, he is certainly looking for the nuts right now as he's casting Serum Visions and figuring out how he does want to scry with the powerful sorcery.
Please check those boards to find your seating for the Sunday Super Series.
Looks like he'll be leaving both cards on top, but he is a little unsure of himself this morning.
It's early for everyone.
It certainly is. Serum Visions is done resolving. We head back Sperling's way. See if he has a Noble Hierarch or a Wild Mikado to start. It will be a Hierarch off of a Wooded Foothill. Sperling likely on his way to 17. Actually, how about 19? Basic Forest, keep it simple.
Keep it clean.
Yeah. I'm sure you approve of that forest.
I do. That's my favorite artwork in Alpha, or among my favorite pieces of art, is the Path Forest. I wonder if this is done in part for Matt to conceal the presence of red mana in his deck. Because he may feel like, okay, if Alexander's got his best draw, there's nothing I can really do about this. And I would rather not show red mana if I can avoid it, because maybe Alexander isn't aware of Blood Moon, doesn't play around to the best of his abilities.
Okay. Ancient Stirrings. We'll pick up a copy of Amulet of Vigor. Let's see what's next here for the Canadian. He'll go with the Simic Growth Chamber to pick up the Gemstone Mine. Pass that turn back over to Sperling. Sperling will draw a card. Picked up a copy of Stomping Ground. Also has another copy of Wooded Foothills in hand. Temple Garden 2. A Wild Mikado. Looks to be the play. Here comes Noble Hierarch in for 1. Hayne's going to go down to 19.
Okay.
not terribly exciting stuff on Sperling's side, but as you mentioned, he's kind of at the mercy of what Hayne can do. Sperling's going to try to put a quick clock onto the table.
Yep.
That's really all he can do in this matchup. No real interaction outside of a Ghost Quarter. And that's not really going to excite anybody.
It's good to see Wild Mikado back in the feature match area, though. It's been a long time.
Your kind of card, not for me.
Who can't get behind a 1-mana 3/3?
Me.
This is a card for everyone.
I don't like it. It's not for, speak for yourself. It's not for me. We got a Summoner's Pack. It'll be for Azusa, Lost But Seeking. I think if you're Sperling, you're probably pretty happy about that. That's not a Primeval Titan.
This implies a big turn's coming, though.
I would agree with that. You know, if he was searching for Primeval Titan, I think
that's even worse.
Yeah, that's even worse, right? He's saying, okay,
It's
well,
true.
I've got Amulet and Summer Bloom in a bounce land, which means I can cast Primeval Titan and go absolutely nuts. Instead, he's just got Azusa. There's Gemstone Mine. That's land at number 1 as far as extra lands are concerned. We'll see what land at number 2 is going to be. It'll be Gruul Turf, it looks like. And it is. Hayne will add a mana with Gruul Turf trigger on the stack, pick up the Gemstone Mine. Looks like he may play the Amulet of Vigor as well, and he will. And he'll pass the turn back. Now, keep in mind, Hayne has to pay for Summoner's Pack next turn.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't forget about that as he places a die on top of his deck.
So if Sperling happens to have his Ghost Quarter here, Alexander has the 1 forest in play. He doesn't have a second basic land in his deck.
A little GQ action.
The plot thickens.
Sperling will search up a Sacred Foundry here, letting it be known that
Combo deck.
I do have red and white mana in my deck for my Wild Mikado.
Plateau, Wild Nikadal, Sacred Foundry, Wild Nikadal, Taiga, Curd Ape, Stomping Ground, Curd Ape. These are my favorite combos.
You know what that is?
Good deck building.
Absolutely.
That's how you build a deck right there. Come on, Matt. Snap him off. Have that Ghost Quarter. Come on, man.
Here's an attack for 4. Patrick is rooting for Sperling, apparently.
No, I'm rooting for Ghost Quarter to determine this game.
Just making it known. Here's a Temple Garden.
Get started with some Stone Rains in the morning.
It's never too early.
It's never too early.
No Ghost Quarter action here, at least just yet. Hayne will pay for the Summoners Pact off the Simic Growth Chamber and the Gruul Turf. We'll see how crazy he can go.
Matt's deck is not actually flush with removal. A lot of Zoo decks are very heavy on burn. I think he's just on bolts and paths.
Yeah, 4 bolts, 4 paths. If you want to consider Kosali Pride Mage to be removal-ish,
Yep.
it is in particular matchups. But I mean, truth be told, taking a look at Sperling's deck list, this is the most honest deck I think I may have seen all weekend.
There is no card in Magic more honest than Loxodon Smiter.
Yeah, yes. There's a Gemstone Mine, 3 counters, of course.
Modern Masters Draft 1. If you were enrolled
When I heard that he was playing Zoo, I was expecting something more explosive.
Yep.
Modern Masters Draft 1.
I guess we can deem this more of a collected company deck than anything. I suppose Zoo is probably a misnomer.
Well, it's got Wild Nakatl. It's got some aggressive elements to it.
Yeah. Gruul Turf going to come down. That'll untap because of Amulet of Vigor. Can't forget that Hayne gets a few land drops here because of Azusa.
I agree. Matt's deck is not looking to kill on the 4th turn. He's not that kind of Zoo deck, but it's got some aggressive elements.
Selesnya Sanctuary will untap. You'll get a trigger. Pick up a bounce land. That's land number 2, I believe. Either way, this is Primeval Titan number 1. I do take that back. It's actually land number 3. Gemstone Mine was land number 1. To go along with a couple of bounce lands. Either way, Hayne's going to run nuts here. We might see Boros Garrison plus Slayer Stronghold to get that Titan a little bit of haste.
Now, Alexander is probably working on the assumption that Matt doesn't have removal in his hand because Alexander was able to go into his turn with Azusa. Usually that's something you kill straight away if you can. With that said, I still think Alexander is going to give himself some padding here, some insurance, in the event that his Primeval Titan is hit with Path to Exile or a similar spell. And you're seeing that right now. He's getting Teleria West. This allows him to find a backup copy of whatever, or just go and get a Path to Negation right now. Looks like he's getting Summoner's Pact. He's backed out. Same concept.
That was a little scary there for Sperling, actually. Because Hayne searching for Simic Growth Chamber and Teleria West, and then floating the mana because of Amulet, and then picking up the Teleria West and transmute again. We saw when Greg Orange was playing against Josh McClain, where Josh transmuted, and he may have searched for a Pact Negation, and Greg said, you know, in response to your transmute, I'll terminate your Titan. Where if Hayne had searched for Pact Negation here, he may have this game locked up to protect the Titan, but maybe he's just saying I'd like another one, because we're going to see Collected Company now, and I think if there's a Pact Negation on this particular card, maybe we have no game here.
Well, the problem is that Alexander currently can't pay the upkeep on a pact, or he would have to get different lands on the Titan or
absolutely.
what have you. So, because he's under no pressure, this is probably good enough.
The Knight of the Reliquary entered from Collected Company, but Sperling only found 1 card off of that. Couldn't even find 2. Knight, of course, pretty powerful in this matchup because he can't go searching for lands. The Ghost Quarter that we did mention is an option for Sperling, but Ghost Quarter probably a little late to this party.
Well, there was a moment here earlier in this game where if Matt had just naturally drawn it, it would have been a game-winning play. Alexander didn't have a force to search for. He's only got 1 in the main deck, and if Matt was able to tag one of the 2-mana lands, he would have won the game because Alexander would have been unable to pay for the pact. Unfortunately for Matt, now we're here, and we might be in point-of-no-return territory. It may take a couple of turns, and if Matt draws some copies of Path to Exile, it delays the inevitable, but he's going to be hard-pressed to win from the spot.
A Knight, a Tarmogoyf, passing the turn, just a bunch of big green idiots.
Except, unfortunately, the biggest green idiot is on the other side of the table.
It is. It is. You're talking about Azusa, of course.
Yeah, of course.
I had a feeling, yeah. So we know Hayne has the ability to find another Primeval Titan if you like. Has Summoner Pact in hand. You can use that to find a Primeval Titan. Continue to go wild. Not a hive mind game here for Hayne. At least it appears that way so far. So it's time to go in the tank, maybe do a little bit of math, see how he can work his way through the situation.
I would just be worried that Matt's deck can also pay for random packs if he gets if Knight of the Reliquary is in play.
Sure.
I don't know exactly what colors he's playing and so on. So I would be trying to just win this game with Primeval Titan, which, given that Matt's got a large board, may take a while, but I think slowly but surely you wear him down in spots like this.
Simic Growth Chamber on the battlefield. It's going to tap for some mana thanks to Amulet. That's land number 1 for Hayne. Surely developing a plan. More mana floating. Here's Teleria West with a green left over, transmuting. Time to go searching. Slaughter Pact. Is it time for maybe Hive Mind? And Sperling wants to make sure he knows exactly what's going on here, but Hayne played a Simic Growth Chamber and just returned it.
Yep.
Untapped it, added mana, returned it. So that was land number 1. They already had a Growth Chamber in play. See the green mana floating there for Hayne. It is early in the morning for both players here.
Yep.
Simic Growth Chamber is land at number 2. Trigger from Amulet. That'll untap. Add a blue and a green. Now return the Growth Chamber. So that's land 2. He gets one more thanks to Azusa. Here's Summoner's Pact now.
Once again, Trevor Wade, your event is ready.
So it's time for Primeval Titan. No more mana floating. Hayne all done with that. You'll get a trigger from the Titan. See who wants to search up. Boros Garrison is brought to the front.
Usually that gets paired with Slayer's Stronghold.
Well, it just did. 2 triggers from Amulet. That'll untap both of these lands.
We are about to begin the player meeting.
Hayne will return the Forest from the Boros Garrison trigger.
Please take out your deck list. Ensure that you have 60 cards in your main deck.
Slayer's Stronghold may be giving the new Primeval Titan haste here. And it appears that it will, so it'll get +2/+0 haste and vigilance. One will have to tap to attack 2 triggers. That means 4 lands coming. I imagine if Azuva is 1, I think we might see Sunholm. Fortress of Legion as number 2.
And what's so impressive about this deck is its ability to find alternate ways to get around things when the game grinds down a little bit. It's really easy to look at the draws where it kills on the 3rd turn and say this is where the power comes from. But Matt has a board of fairly large creatures and the ability to deny the Reliquary for Ghost Quarter at a moment's notice. And Alexander still has enough workarounds in this spot that it looks like he's going to be able to win this game pretty comfortably.
I've always loved combo decks that can do this, which is, you know what, not everything went according to plan, but I can still play a kind of normalized game of Magic and beat you. Now, Sperling is going to pause Hayne as this first Primeval Titan trigger has resolved. Slayer Stronghold and Teleria West were the lands of choice because Sperling has an active Knight of the Reliquary, which means that he can search for a Ghost Quarter. So Hayne may have just been assuming, I'm good to just keep going and not stop.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if Matt can break this up with a Ghost Quarter at this point because you can't. There's no way to get. I guess he needs to get the Garrison with the trigger on the stack.
I like taking care of the Sunholm because that's the most problematic land at this point. Like, the land that gives him double strike, I think might be the best land in this situation because now now Alexander on this search probably would have gotten Vesuva to copy Boros Garrison, which would have untapped in some other land, and now his Titans get double strike. I think Sperling's plan here is to make my Nether Reliquaries bigger than Primeval Titan.
Yeah. And it's much easier to do that in the face of Slayer Stronghold, for example, than it is to do it in the face of Sunholm. Sunholm makes it basically impossible.
A couple of Vesuvas will come down. We'll get confirmation on what those are copying, because they are untapped lands now. And Hayne has decided to copy a Slayer Stronghold and a Boros Garrison.
Just trying to pump over the top of blocks.
Yep.
And he has, as we know, a Slaughter Pact in hand in the event that Matt ever tries to get frisky with some sort of double or triple block. Alexander can blow that up.
Though I am doing a black mana check for Hayne. Suppose he has a gemstone mine in hand.
Yeah.
So he can be okay on that.
If he really cared to, he could have gotten a Golgari Rot farm with
Sure.
the Primeval Titan as well, and elected not to, so probably just leaning on the gemstone mine to accomplish that.
Sperling looking to do a little double block action. Tarmo going for 3-4 right now. Nikotl a 3-3, of course. Matt trying to figure out what the best way to block is here in this situation. And if he can actually win this game, he might be able to off the power of Knight of the Reliquary.
Well, it's tough because he's run out of value lands that do an appreciable amount of influence on Alexander's board. If he had more copies of Ghost Quarter in his deck, I think it's a different conversation. With just the one, I don't know if he can get out of this in the long term.
Yeah. The big plan might be make my Knights into 8-8s or 10-10s or something. I think that's a strategy he might be on.
I think the big play actually might be, hopefully the game goes at a slow enough pace and there's enough complexity that Alexander forgets a pack trigger.
That might be the grand plan.
I'm not saying that's the plan,
Yep.
but I think it's probably on Matt's radar as a way this game could conclude.
Slayer Stronghold will target the tapped and attacking Primeval Titan. The other one that's being blocked by Knight of the Reliquary was targeted by Slayer Stronghold pre-combat. So that's an 8-6 with Trample and Vigilant and Haste. So there'll be some trample damage. Some Titans are going to die.
Super Sunday Series players, round 1.
Sperling, of course, is going to take some trample damage in this exchange, but I think he might be okay with what has taken place thus far. There's a gemstone mine. That's land drop number 3. That's the last one that Hayne gets to have for the turn. And now there's Slaughter Pact to take care of the Knight.
Die on top of the deck.
Yeah, your trick of hoping. I don't think that's going to work. Maybe against a non-Pro Tour, non-multiple time Grand Prix champion.
I'm saying there was a plan.
Yeah.
There was an out there. Now that's gotten tougher.
Alexander Hayne means business. He's not 8-1 on accident. Sperling with Noble Hierarch will come across here for 2.
But given just the size of Sperling's creatures, you feel like if he had even had something like a Bolt for the Azusa or a Solid Pride Mage for the Amulet, this could have been a very different game.
I think so.
He's done an admirable job of keeping his head above water in spite of all the Primeval Titans and the fact that Alexander's development has basically gone unchecked this game.
Hayne gonna organize his lands here. The Vesuva that's with the Slayer Stronghold is a Slayer Stronghold. The same thing can be said for the Vesuva that's a Boros Garrison. Hayne right now does have to pay for Slaughter Pact and his upkeep. He'll use the Gemstone Mine to help facilitate that. Summoner's Pact as well. See, he had 2 packs to remember that turn. Didn't even phase him. It's too easy. Sperling making sure everything is in order, and it is. Now Hayne will draw.
Something to keep in mind this game, that there's only 1 copy of Slaughter Pact in the deck.
Yep.
Sperling now, with the 2nd copy of Noble Hierarch, can pay for Pact of Negation as well. So we're looking at just Primeval Titan to finish off this game.
But I think Hayne might be okay with that.
Yeah, I think that he can get this done, but he is running low on them. And at this point, Sperling just drawing a couple back-to-back copies of Path to Exile, something like that. He may be able to win this one.
It could make things tough for Hayne, that's for sure, as Vesuva is going to come down. Gonna do a little copy action. Some floating of mana. These are lovely counters there to help the viewers at home, as Talaria West will be. Talaria West is going to transmute away to get a Summoner's Pact, and then a Primeval Titan will likely come into play. There's Pact. Here's Titan. We've seen this song and dance before. A little bit of mana floating here for Hayne to use. And we'll see if Sperling can overcome a 3rd Titan, as he is empty-handed. 2 lands on the way, of course. Looks like Radiant Fountain maybe 1.
Sure.
Got to get that life gain.
Yeah.
Oh, now in the garden.
Garden.
Ah, yes.
A little offense, defense.
Indeed. If you don't think you can kill someone with a plant token, you are sorely mistaken.
If you are still missing an opponent, please raise your hand to help him find you.
There's the Colony Garden and the Radiant Fountain. They'll untap because of Amulet of Vigor. Hayne will gain 2 life. He'll also get no 1 plant token.
I suppose if Alexander runs out of the Primeval Titans, then there is still the Garden being looped back up by Slayer's Stronghold.
Mm-hmm. You're never out of ammo with the Garden. Slayer Stronghold will give Primeval Titan haste. It's an 8/6 trampling, vigilant creature. Hayne does have a Vesuva to play. So he's got 1 more land drop left for the turn. We'll see if he wants to use it right now. It appears that he does. And of course, we'll get confirmation on what this Vesuva is copying in just a moment. As Primeval Titan's going to come in. Trigger, of course, 2 more lands. And Vesuva did copy Slayer's Stronghold.
Super Sunday series.
To his credit, Matt definitely knew the land that he needed to get off the table here. If that Boros Garrison's in play, there's no way he has any hope of blocking.
The Sunholm.
The Sunholm,
The
excuse
Sunholm,
me.
yes.
Excuse me, the Sunholm.
Today is Joe Huda.
The trigger from the Titan searches up a Gruul Turf and a Gemstone Mine. Those, of course, will untap. Hayne will return to the Colony Garden for more plant shenanigans later in the game if they're necessary. And with the lands that he's searched up, he can Slayer Stronghold again. Again, Gruul Turf is untapped. That provides the red. Gemstone Mine provides the white. And the Vesuva near those lands is Slayer Stronghold. So we could have a 10/6 Titan now. And we're going to. His Gemstone Mine will tick down to 2. Looks like Sperling's going to go down to 1. And that's it for Hayne's turn.
Not bad.
No, that's it. Sperling with another Reliquary. He'll pass the turn back as his good friend Tom Martell will watch behind him. Hoping Matt can pull this game out. Hayne, gonna untap here, does have a Summoner's Pact to pay for.
But I think he can find enough mana.
Not gonna run dry here.
Yeah, you know, 4 is a lot, but I think he'll be all right. Yeah, that's 2, and that's 4. Yeah, we're good.
Just enough. He'll take a draw. Looks like he may have picked up a copy of Hive Mind, but it doesn't appear that this game is about that.
Players, looking for Miles Wilson. Miles Wilson in Modern number 5. Please report to the on-demand.
Hayne looking to figure out how to deal that last point of damage. Now the Reliquary on Sperling's side is relatively large. There's the Garden. That'll untap because of Amulet of Vigor. Plant token on the way. Golgari Rot Farm is land number 2. Garden up. Garden is land number 3. That'll untap, of course, because of Amulet. Plant token number 3. We're going to have to check our plant token spot. Look at this.
Got all 3. That's impressive.
That is truly impressive. Are we Slayer Strongholding plant tokens? Oh, yes.
The final ignominy on Sperling's side.
Oh,
here.
yes.
Again, done in by the plant tokens.
Yep. Looks like they might all be getting a little power now, because Hayne has multiple copies of Slayer Stronghold. I believe 3 of them. Though it might only be 2. Yeah, it looks like it might only be 2. It looks like Azusa's going to come in. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, Sperling's at 1.
Yep.
And his attacks are good.
I need to get those last points of damage across. Yep, and that's going to get the job done. Alexander Hayne with the assist from some plant tokens is going to win game number 1 here over Matt Sperling. Amulet Bloom is up a game this morning over Naya Company. As we turn our attention to the sideboards and we look at Sperling's to start, since he'll be on the play. And I know he's going to be reaching for those 3 Blood Moons pretty quick. There's also 3 Core Firewalkers, 3 Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, 2 Grim Lavamancers, 3 Stony Silence, and, oh yeah, baby, a Bonfire of the Damned.
Well, we know for sure the Blood Moons are coming in. I think there is a possibility that Thalia comes in. It can be a little disruptive if he's on the play and has it on turn 2, but the 3 Blood Moon's coming in for sure.
What do we see on Hayne's side?
3 Leyline of Sanctity, a Hornet Queen, 2 copies of Pyroclasm, 2 copies of Seal Primordium, a Nature's Claim, a Ghost Quarter, 3 copies of Thragtusk, a Forest, and a Cavern of Souls. I think that Alexander in this matchup wants to get away from the Hive Mind package because Matt has shown the ability to pay for packs. He has a lot of mana, and he's pretty diverse in terms of his color. So I think you want to get away from that and bring in the cards like Thragtusk, Hornet Queen, and the Pyroclasms. Pretty standard cards to bring in against creature decks, and cards that Matt is going to struggle to beat. Alexander can accelerate into Thragtusk and Hornet Queen, especially the Hornet Queen, and those cards are going to be good enough to beat Matt in a good percentage of games.
We are looking for your questions at home about Modern, about Magic in general, as we took many, many yesterday, so we want to thank you guys for interacting on Twitter. You can do the same all day today at SCG Live, hashtag GPCharlotte. Of course, you can send them directly to me at Cedric A. Phillips or Patrick at Basic Mountain. Want to hear from our viewers at home that made it day 1 yesterday. One of our best day 1s ever here on SCG Live. We're looking to make day 2 a fantastic one, too, as we watch Sperling and Hayne get ready for game number 2. I think Sperling's just a huge dog at game 1.
Yeah, he did tell me yesterday that he did win this matchup, but he said it to me in the tone of voice that implied that he understood it was a pretty big upset. Now, he's got game here in the post-board games, and Alexander was probably anticipating Blood Moons. The 2 copies of Seal Primordium will probably come in to preempt that.
Sure.
But there are going to be some draws where Matt just has, turn 3, even turn 2 Blood Moon assisted by Noble Hierarch, and Alexander can't really play. And that's not a dimension Matt has game 1. You saw Matt had a pretty solid draw game 1. It was on the slower side, definitely, but it was a fine draw. And eventually, Alexander was able to overpower it. And Matt can't do a lot to speed up his deck. He is on the slower side as far as Zoo decks go. And so his plan for the matchup is to try to cheat it with Blood Moon, essentially.
Renee Shep wondering why nobody is playing Avenger of Zendikar and Amulet Bloom to Pact for. I think the reason for that is a lot of the time when you are accelerating into a big spell with your Summer Bloom, Amulet of Vigor, Summoner's Pact draws that involve a bounce land, you're actually not doing it with a lot of lands on the battlefield.
Right.
I think that's the main reason.
It seems like if you were in the market for that sort of thing, you would just play a Hornet Queen in the main deck.
Yeah.
I know it's a little less powerful in terms of how much attack you're potentially putting into play, but it also shores up the air, which is a place where sometimes Amulet can get punked out of games.
Dino wondering our thoughts on the future of Affinity in Modern. Don't think the deck is going anywhere. The positioning of it is a little tough right now. Jund being a major player, Kolaghan's Command, of course, coming out, and if players actually have hate cards like we saw in Namsang Wook with Shatterstorm on the board, it's going to be tough.
My opinion on the metagame right now is there's 3 really good decks. Grixis Twin, Jund, and Amulet. Those, to me, right now are the class of Modern. And then below that, there's a bunch of totally fine choices. Not something that I would necessarily play in a tournament right now, but if you were practice and had a good list, you could definitely do well, even win a tournament. And I put Affinity in that second camp of decks.
Jeremy Bashan wondering what it would take to make a competitive green-red aggro or Domri Rod deck. I think this Naya Company deck that Sperling is playing kind of falls into the green-red aggro camp. I know there are some white cards in here, of course, but I think straight green-red aggro is pretty unlikely, and Domri Rod is just a little underpowered for Modern.
It's just a little slow.
Yeah.
Just a little bit slow. If you had a red-green beatdown deck with Domris in the sideboard for certain slower matchups, I can get behind that for sure, but I wouldn't want to play it in the main deck.
There are some matchups where it will do flat nothing.
But there's some matchups where it's pretty powerful.
Absolutely.
In your Jund type of matchups where the fight power and the plus power are solid, but I would not want to play it in the main deck.
Sperling going to be on the play here. He'll take a long look at his opening hand. He comes out of the tank. He's going to keep. Green light means go. We'll see what he's going to go with. He will start with an Arid Mesa. That's going to bring him down to 19. We'll see what land he wants to search up. It'll be a copy of Stomping Ground. There's Wadnakotl.
Yes.
I feel like maybe Sperling was tanking because his hand may not contain a Blood Moon.
His hand's a little bit on the slow side. It looks like 2 more lands, 2 Neither Reliquary, and a Path to Exile. which is a solid 7-card hand. But Matt may feel like this matchup is Blood Moon or bust. I think Path to Exile plus Nikado plus Knight is a solid enough package. It's disruption. It's good pressure. It's no Blood Moon, but it'll have to do, I feel like.
Serum Vision's done resolving here for Hayne. Sperling will untap. His Nikado, you have to imagine, will be a 3/3 in just a
Second
moment.
Nikado.
Okay. Look at you.
Oh! Heating up early this morning.
Yeah, it's beatdown time.
We got a draw.
Yeah. Here's a windswept Heath. Sperling on his way down to 16. Basic planes, always a potent strategy.
This allows him both to play around his own Blood Moon, should he happen to draw it, and have the Path to Exile in his hand ready to go without it being awkward. Because otherwise he would have to fetch for an untapped dual land, signaling to Alexander that he had some pretty specific cards.
Indeed. Nikado in for 3, Hayne down to 17. And Hayne is under the gun here. This is the Wild Nikado beatdowns. Hayne's got to get moving here. Gemstone Mine is land at number 2. It's time for Summer Bloom number 1. 3 additional land drops on the way. Number 1 is a Simic Growth Chamber. Trigger, that'll return the mine. Number 2 is a Gemstone Mine. What's number 3 going to be? Well, we'll find out what that is in a minute. Here's Serum Visions. Hayne very fluid with this deck.
Yep. I mean, I like Alexander Hayne a lot. Got to hang out with him a little bit Grand Prix Sydney last year. Smart dude, funny dude. But never has good versus evil been so easy to articulate in terms of decks than what we have in front of us right now.
We have a very honest Zoo deck.
Wild Nikado with a basic plains accompanying it
Okay.
versus Gemstone Nines, blue cantrips, 2-mana lands, and Summer Bloom.
There's Night of the Reliquary. Sperling giving the beatdowns here.
Yep.
Knight's a 4/4, Nikados are 3/3s.
And this is the type, if Alexander's draw here is just land Primeval Titan, Matt can win this game with the Path to Exile that's in his hand. His clock might just be a little bit too fast.
Hayne has a copy of Summoner's Pact, which means he likely has a Primeval Titan on the way, and he does. He'll cast that.
And the fact that this is going through a Summoner's Pack is even better news for Matt.
It is.
Because it means that, you know, it's not going to be easy for Alexander to redeploy something significant next turn.
Matt with that Path to Exile in hand, he's ready. See what lands Hayne wants to search up here. It's always a tough choice, Primeval Titan in this deck, especially when you don't have an Amulet Vigor and are being beaten down. The Garden. It looks like maybe a Golgari Rot Farm. Seems to signal a card like Slaughter Pact perhaps in hand.
And getting the Garden here may give Alexander a little bit cushion in terms of chump blocking. Matt's board is all non-trampling creatures. And it's looking like he might need a chump block here.
There is Slaughter Pact to take care of another Reliquary. Good turn for Hayne.
Absolutely.
He'll put 2 dice on top of the deck. 2 packs, of course. Go Sperling's way. I'll take a draw. Remember, Path to Exile already in hand. Collected Company now in hand.
And this is another spot where if Sperling happened to draw the one Ghost Quarter in his deck, I suppose Alexander can pay for all the packs, even through a Ghost Quarter, but it's his whole turn. Oh no, excuse me, that's a guarded, not another 2-mana land. It would be good.
There's Path. Sperling.
Trying to move the dice around a little bit.
Yeah, what dice for these packs?
Can we get those stray dice off the table, please?
Yeah. There we go. Here come the Nikados. Sperling always a jokester as he puts Hayne down to 8. Does he have a follow-up to play? Yes, sir. Another Knight of the Reliquary, keeping it simple, providing lethal next turn. And Hayne has to pay for 2 backs here.
Yeah, 7 mana coming.
Yeah.
Gonna be hard for him to work his way through this one.
And Sperling keeping things so simple this game. A couple of coddles, couple of reliquaries, 1 removal spell. Seeing if it's good enough. It looks pretty good.
The draws that aren't assisted by Amulet can be a little bit on the slow side. And this is about as aggressive of a start as Matt is capable of cobbling together. On the play, winning a game here without the assistance of Blood Moon is very impressive. Not lucked up just yet, but looking like there's a good chance we're going to game 3 here in a moment.
Hayne will play a Serum Visions. You saw him pay for both of the packs already. So he'll draw a card. Scry 2. Both of those are going to go to the bottom. Simic Growth Chamber, pick up that Gemstone Mine to reset it, pass the turn back. Sperling going to quickly untap, take a draw here. The beatdowns and the W. Matt Sperling's going to win game number 2 against Alexander Hayne. Naya Company, Amulet Bloom, they're all tied up. See if Sperling goes back to the drawing board. Maybe Hayne will as well. Underneath 14 minutes here for these players. Game 1 did take a little while.
Yep, it was a slower affair. It took Alexander a while to grind through Matt's board. That was a fast one.
Yes. Made it pretty simple. Some players wondering if we've seen Restore, Balance, Greater Gargadon yet this weekend. Doesn't look like very many people are playing that strategy this weekend. No. It's a bit of a fringe strategy in Modern.
It's a sweet deck. That deck's best draws are really, really good.
Yeah.
It's just a kind of a high variance strategy.
John. Oh, John, I'm going to use your Twitter handle because I don't want to destroy your last name. At Only Azorius, question for us: which card artwork is our favorite? Do you have a favorite artwork in Magic?
I have a couple favorites. The Path Forest from Alpha, high on my list.
Okay.
The one that Sperling's playing with. I really like the artwork to Elvish Archers when I was a kid. I really like the artwork for the Abyss.
The Abyss, huh?
Yeah. Okay. And it just stands out as being very different.
Sure.
I think the presentation is really cool. There's probably a couple others if I thought about it, but those 3 jump to mind immediately.
3 for me. Pristine Angel, number 1.
Okay.
Always a big fan of that artwork. Restoration Angel.
Okay.
Was always a big fan of the original Restoration Angel artwork, not the promo.
Mm-hmm.
And then Time Stop.
Okay.
I like all 3 of those. I actually kind of want to get a hold of at least one of those pieces.
I really like the artwork to Gaia's Cradle. That's one that's high on my list, too.
Okay.
A lot of green cards here.
Yeah, look at you. Surprised Pouncing Jaguar is not on the list.
Not a big fan of the artwork on Pouncing Jaguar.
I
I like the artwork to, if we're going to talk about green echo creatures, I like the artwork to Cradle Guard a lot more than the artwork to Pouncing Jaguar.
All right.
I really like trees that are going beatdowns. Magic has a good roster of those. Ironwood Treefolk, I believe. Also a hilarious piece of art, tree going beatdowns. A little obstinate looking.
Patrick Chapin with a little tweet. He's 9-1 now, defeating Jund to this time and burned the last round of yesterday. So the Grixis Mage in a Grixis tournament.
Yep.
He's doing it.
Going to be a tough out this time around.
Enrique wondering if there are any Blue-Black Fairies players out there. Does not appear to be the case.
Well, it's a deck that I'm sure people are playing it. I would be shocked if there were 0 copies in day 2 of a tournament of this size. To me, it's one of the legitimate fringe decks of the format, but we have not had it on camera yet.
Luis Scott Vargas tweeting, getting torn apart by Wild Nicados is not the way I wanted to start the day. Sounds like perhaps Luis started his day off with a loss.
Yep.
Moving down to 7-3, unfortunately, for LSV.
Listen, when you lose the Wild Nicodle deck, you can only be upset with yourself. It's not like they didn't let you do your thing.
Yeah, you have to play your spells.
You got to play your spells, man. Unless you got Blood Mooned, I guess.
Well, that's what Sperling's trying to do this game.
Yeah. Not looking to fight fair.
No. Noble Hierarch into Blood Moon. See ya.
Although, you know, he did beat a reasonable draw from Alexander when Matt was on the play without Blood Moon.
I agree.
Wild Nikotl, very important in this matchup for Matt.
Yes.
Gotta get some pressure going.
Least favorite artwork we would have to think about. That's a tough question. That one was asked by Mino.
Yeah, that's some. I hate putting the artist on blast because everyone who's ever done a piece of Magic artwork is a phenomenal talent.
Yes.
So I feel pretty bad about talking about which ones I dislike the most.
Because for least favorite artwork, it would associate with a card that I just dislike. It has nothing to do with the artwork. It's like, I've lost this card a million times, so I dislike it. As a result, every time I see it, it makes me angry. It has nothing to do with the artwork.
As a commentator, my least favorite pieces of art are the dual lands that look too similar to other dual lands that appear in the same block.
Yeah.
Like the original Ravnica dual lands and the Ravnica bounce lands look too close. So I really hate collectively that cycle of artwork.
Counterflux and is a Staticaster.
Yep, that's another good one.
They look the exact same.
Tasigur and Murderous Cut.
Yeah, they look.
That one gets me a good percentage of the
They
time.
look pretty alike. Again, nothing to do with the artwork.
Right.
They look similar.
Makes my life worse. That's why. That's where that's coming from.
Matt starts off with the Noble Hierarch. That's piece one of the Blood Moon combo.
Though, kind of bad news here for Matt that Alexander is starting off with a basic forest.
Yeah.
There's only one on the list unless he brought in the second one for fear of Ghost Quarter and Path to Exile, which I guess is possible.
I would not be surprised if he brought in the second one at all.
That said, it does make Blood Moon potentially worse and allows Alexander to cast something like Seal, Primordium, or Nature's Claim if it's in his deck.
There's Radiant Fountain. A little life gain here for Hayne. The follow-up might be a copy of Amulet. It is. Pass the turn back. Sperling going to quickly untap and take a draw here. I don't see any red cards over there for Matt. Does not appear to have one of his 3 Blood Moons.
Does he have a Kasali Pride Mage? That would be very good right now as well.
I would not hate that. He's got to slow this Bloom deck down. Oh, Brian Kibler chiming in with worst artwork. From the Vault, Dryad Arbor.
Oh, that's a great choice.
Yeah, that's a great choice, Brian.
Contextually, I mean, it's a nice piece of art, but the fact that it just looks like a forest,
Yeah,
that's a great choice.
unacceptable.
I guess it's tied technically with the forest that looks exactly like the Dryad Arbor.
Yeah.
They're kind of hand in hand.
Sperling searching of a basic plains with that Arid Mesa. Thalia might be able to slow down Hayne a little bit, but this deck can make so much mana. I do wonder how good Thalia can be in a situation like this. Sperling also looks like he's going to come across the Noble Hierarch before passing the turn.
I think Thalia is solid on the play, and I think Matt has enough low-impact cards where he can also keep it in on the draw. But in this spot, it's not likely to do a lot. If Alexander's got his draw at this point with Amulet in play, he's going to generate enough mana to be able to work around Thalia, most likely.
Joel Larson watching the broadcast.
Hey, buddy.
I think he said his tweet says best art that is. I don't know if he's talking about himself.
Yeah.
It's very unclear.
Joel is very good looking, so.
Absolutely. Let's see what Hayne has here for his 3rd turn. You see the hand? See that's the counting hand.
Yeah. Well, it's a little trickier now. With this sort of deck, you just start remembering the permutations of various lines of play. You know the flash points for certain amounts of mana that you need to do your things. Now with Thalia in play, all the math that you've kind of shorthanded in your own head, if part of this chain involves casting spells, casting packs, casting summer blooms, now all the pattern recognition that you've developed is thrown out the window, and you kind of have to sit down for a second and actually do the math.
Yeah, it's kind of like this muscle memory that you have of
Right.
this costs this to do this to do this, and it's like, okay, I have to add 1 to all of these things. I could really mess this up. Yeah, my Summoner's Pack cost an additional mana now.
Right, all these shorthands that you develop playing the deck, you can't have, and so you actually have to sit down and add everything up, and it can really slow things down.
We saw Hayne do this to great effect last game. 2 games ago did he search up the Azusa with the Summoner's Pack. So this actually comes up, I think, a little bit more than people think.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Alexander's just trying to bridge the development gap. He needs something like Summer Bloom or 1 turn of Azusa to get the requisite mana to start doing things with Primeval Titan, and then the game from his end probably gets pretty easy.
Simic Growth Chamber is land number 1. Azusa does not cost any extra when Thalia is in play. So here is land number 2, Nintendo Ice Bridge. Land number 3 in Radiant Fountain. You'll get a trigger and a counter on the Ice Bridge. Hayne will put a die on top of the deck. Get ready to pay the pack for next turn.
Yeah.
So just an acceleration turn there for Hayne.
Blood Moon is game over.
It is. But that's not the draw there for Sperling. It's just a copy of Wooded Foothills.
And you can see the liability that card poses. I mean, Alexander's had a solid draw here. Matt's draw is a little on the slow side, but Blood Moon just ices him here.
An attack for 3. Given Exalted, thanks to Noble Hierarch. For what it's worth, Thalia may be messing with Sperling a little bit now because he has Collected Company in the hand. So a touch awkward there. Let's see what the follow-up is here for Matt.
Thud.
Ah, yes. Magic's most honest card.
Yeah, there it is.
Loxodon Smiter. If you like creatures, that's cool.
Do you like attacking and blocking?
I do.
I got the card for you. Don't like counter spells or discard?
Who does?
If only it had some clause against LD, then it would be the casual room special, right? No counter spells, no discard, no LD. If your land's destroyed, you can play a Smiter for free.
That'd actually be kind of awesome. It would be weird, but it would be
You
awesome.
can't, it's a hard card to write.
That's a hard
I'm just
template.
saying. It's so close. It's 90% of the way there to being the casual room all-star.
Hayne is chaining off with some mana here, it appears. Picking up some Growth Chamber, untapping it thanks to Amulet, adding some mana. We might have a Primeval Titan on the way here for Alexander. And it appears that we do. Wait, he's thumbing through his hand. And again, he doesn't have to pay any extra for that either. What's truly impressive about this deck is the ability to pay for Pact in one turn, in which you would think that would be the opponent's entire next turn, and that's not even true.
Well, when Amulet plus Azusa is in play, it's trivial to reassemble a boatload of mana.
Slayer Stronghold and Boros Garrison, the 1-2 punch. There is the activation. Slayer Stronghold going to be returned. Here comes prime time. 8-6, haste, trample, vigilance, trigger. Keep it coming. Yeah, I think the situation with Sperling with Athalia is he just had enough bad cards to board out.
Yep.
That he should, I'm going to bring it in. I don't expect it to do very much. I'm not going to keep it hand based off of this card, but if it shows up, it does have the potential to actually do something.
Right. I mean, Thalia's not, it's good more than 0% of the time, especially when Matt's on the play. He's going to get some draws where it is a piece of disruption. When it looks kind of comical when the board gets to this place, but I don't mind Matt bringing it in. I thought it was going to come in. If it didn't come in, I thought it was more of a concession to Matt just wanting to be able to cast Blood Moon for sure if he drew it, rather than Thalia not being good enough to bring in.
Primetime hits for a bunch, gets a bunch of lands out of the deck. Hayne's going to transmute his Tolaria West that he picked up from the second Primeval Titan trigger of the turn. He'll go transmuting. We'll see what pact he wants to get. I can't imagine he'll be searching for a land. So Summoners, Slaughter, or Negation are the options here for Hayne. Looks like he's going to go with Slaughter. Currently tapped out, so he can't cast it.
No.
I don't believe any mana floating here for
And
Hayne.
Matt can still get this game turned around with Blood Moon.
Yeah. It's got to be right now, though. I don't think that was it. Kasai Pride Mage's the draw. A little late to the party.
Yeah, earlier that would have been a big help because Alexander's gone wild with this amulet, but at this point, Matt's got to beat the creatures, not necessarily the artifact.
A lot of observers in the feature match area this morning watching Sperling and Hayne. Two great players duking it out 8-1 here. In this matchup, I do wonder maybe it's tough to say maybe on the draw if you're just supposed to try to mulligan for Blood Moon. That's hard to say.
I don't know. Maybe Matt's hand still felt good enough to me to keep, but it's much the same story as we saw kind of in game one, where he had no disruption, no path to exile, and he's kind of just getting run over. Maybe his mulligan standards need to be a bit more strict in this matchup.
Sperling working on his turn. Patrick Dickman, he has no more turns to work on. He won his first match of the day against Affinity, putting him to 9-1. So thank you for the tweet, Patrick, as Teamer Twin is rolling along here this weekend.
Not surprising.
Not at all.
I got to
Not
run
from
into him last night in Charlotte
Yeah.
while I was out doing my thing and he was out doing his thing. Complimented on him on his level of play. He was very impressive on camera.
Always is. Sperling taking a long look at his hand. He's going to start by playing the Windswept Heath. Does have Collected Company in hand at this point. Pride Mage 2. Again, Collected Company is going to cost 5 in this situation thanks to the Thalia being in play. Looks like Matt might be going the Kasali Pride Mage route.
Prime Mage allows him to attack with the Smiter at least. Got 2 Exalted triggers. Though at this point, Matt might just be trying to play pure defense.
All right, so this should be turn number 1 of extra turns, and it is.
And Matt's aware that he can't win the game at this point. He's playing for the draw. He could have actually attacked with the Smiter in that spot because he had 2 Exalted triggers between the Pride Mage and the Noble Hierarch, and elected not to, which means, in my mind, he's just trying to block and get the clock to expire.
There's Slayer Stronghold. Land number 2 is Radiant Fountain, trigger up to 22. Gonna be tough for Sperling to win when Hayne gets 3 turns.
Yep. Because at this point, assuming the Primeval Titan is uncontested, Alexander has a lot of workarounds to make sure that he gets another Primeval Titan, even if Matt is able to trade in combat, which is not going to be easy to do.
Well, prime time might be over. Might be time for some busy bees here. Yeah, it is.
And Alexander's still sitting on that Slaughter Pact too, which makes double blocking basically impossible.
Hornet Queen's gonna bring a trigger along with it. 4 insects will be joining the party in just a moment. And perhaps the Queen herself will be targeted by Slayer Stronghold. We'll see.
Now, there's still room for Alexander to mess this game up. If he gets a little bit too aggressive here, uses a Slaughter Pact inside of combat, and leaves himself in a, without killing Matt, and leaves him in a position where Blood Moon is still an out, not inconceivable. I think Alexander is smart enough where it's going to be on his radar that he needs to insulate himself from that scenario. But it's looking bad for Matt. Most likely Alexander's going to be able to kill him within the next 3 turns, but there's still a way for this game to get messed up.
Primeval Titan's trigger is going to bring a Golgari Rot Farm and something else along with it. We will see what it's going to be here momentarily. Looks like a copy of Gemstone Mine. Return the Tendo Ice Bridge. Got to reset that thing. Get it a counter. See what kind of block Sperling has in mind here.
Well, if Alexander's attacking here for 10, I think he has to block the Primeval Titan. There's 10 coming across the table right now.
Yeah, so Thalia will have to block. And actually, this is kind of awkward because I believe Sperling's going to get on a 1.
And there's an Azusa available to have attacked.
Well, the other tough thing too is Sperling is if you draw Blood Moon,
Yeah, you can't cast
he can't
it.
cast. He's got no red mana.
Yeah. I think last turn, I mean, it's so hard to know the scenario is going to come up because you had to be playing around Hornet Queen dealing 4, basically. But if he plays a Stomping Ground tapped, it's still an out.
Hayne's going to pay for the Slaughter pack, which means Sperling is going to concede the game. Alexander Hayne's going to win this match here in extra turns against Matt Sperling. 2-1. Amulet Bloom takes care of Naya Company. And Hayne, again, with a Grand Prix top 8 already, a Grand Prix Vancouver with Amulet Bloom, he is well on his way to doing it again with this powerful deck.
So I don't think that matchup is quite. I mean, Sperling lost, obviously. The matchup seems bad, but we did see him win a game when he was on the play and never see Blood Moon in either of the sideboard games where Blood Moon likely would have been lights out. I think he's in a huge hole game number 1, but he has shown the ability to win just with a good draw of Night of the Reliquaries and Wild Nakatas while he's on the play. And Blood Moon in those sideboard games would have been a haymaker at any point.
As it oftentimes is.